Okay, I'm recording. Good, perfect. Now, because last time when we did the intro, when we did the actual breakdown of the program, got to record. It's a whole hullabaloo with that one. Anyways, but so I'm recording now. So let's go ahead and talk about Anki. Okay, so with Anki, it's a great way to kind of um utilize active recall, right? It's a great way to utilize active recall. So we're going to talk about how to use this and the best way to use it. Okay? Because many people they end up trying to do it and they kind of fiddle around with it, and then they find out later on down the line that they got like 5,000 cards that they got to do in a day, and then they're like, I'm done. And then they decide to just not do it anymore. They're like, why am I spending like 4 to 5 hours sitting here doing these cards, just going over this stuff when I could be doing new stuff or could be doing questions or could be doing something else, right? That they tend to then veer away from doing Anki to do other stuff, which I get. It's not, I'm not against people who decide not to do Anki. And you could be someone who decides to not do Anki even after seeing this. You're just like, yeah, this just isn't clicking with me. But the big thing is this. I'm going to discuss this today and explain how this is. You try it if you want to try it, and you see if you're able to keep up with it, then keep with it. If you're not able to keep up with it and you see yourself banging your head against it, don't keep banging your head against it. Okay? Leave it and do something else. There's many other ways that you can do active recall that doesn't require Anki at all, right? Because like I was saying in my introduction package, I did Anki my first year. Second year, I didn't really touch Anki at all. So, and I still got the same grades that I got when I was touching Anki and when I wasn't touching Anki. So it's not that Anki is required. As long as you're doing active recall, that is the big thing. Now, what I did when I didn't do Anki, I was doing other things for active recall. I had my daughter, so I was like telling her, active recall with her. I was telling her all the different things. I was like acting like she was a patient. I was, oh, these are the things, different things. If you have this disease, these are the medications you're going to take. And she's just sitting there looking at me. But if that's if you don't have someone to do that with, then you can even do it to like a whiteboard. You can do it as if you're pretending like you're teaching a class. I want to say my last semester, my classmates used to walk up to me and like walk by me by accident, and they'd be like, "Well, you're getting we're kind of worried about you. You feel like you may be going crazy because you're talking to yourself." And I'm like, well, I'm not doing Anki, so that I got to do some kind of active recall. I'm not going crazy, I promise. Um, but yeah, so it's all about the active recall. That's the most key. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to do Anki, and we'll go that way. Okay. So what you're gonna do is before you even touch Anki, so you've downloaded Anki, you've downloaded a deck. Anki is a very good one to use. I want to say the newer versions of Anki now are requiring you to buy like a subscription for it to download it, and then after you download it, you're able to then use it. Um, if you have issues finding an On King deck, I don't have any doubt that one of the fellow classmates has a deck that they can share with you. That's the exact updated deck. Um, so I'm not going to go over that because you can easily get that. Okay. So what I'm going to go over is how to use it, right? That's the key thing. It's not getting it is the issue, it's using it as the issue. What you're going to do is since you have the pass tracker, since this is all the stuff I've sent to you guys, right? Is the pass tracker and all that stuff. We're going to be doing lymph stuff tomorrow with immuno. We're going to be doing the basics. We're going to be getting this all started, right? So lymph nodes, spleen, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about innate immunity. We'll talk about the T cells and B cells. You have that schedule and you have the PowerPoint. Um, so with that being said, you could do those videos with it. So you can go to, let's say, lymph node and spleen. You go and you click on the boards and beyond. Sometimes it won't pop up, but it'll take you to the boards and beyond, and then you can just type in lymph node and spleen. And then it'll pull up what you're looking for, right? So probably because we have and. This is do lymph node. There we go. Lymph node and spleen. So you're going to watch this video. You'll take notes. You can download the PowerPoint. You guys have access to this. I've given you all access to this because I've bought a subscription and sent it to you. Now, with that being said, try also try to keep it this within our group, right? Because of the issue of if this gets out to too many people, then Board and Beyond people may get more weary of, well, like, what the heck is going on here? There's like 10, 10 or 15 people using the same subscription here, and something's going on. So we're trialing this for the first time. So try to just keep it within our group. I want to see what ends up happening. If I end up getting an email later on, like, hey, you need to make sure that, then I'll buy another one. But I want to just try and just keep it within us. Now, the other thing is, so you're gonna watch the video, okay? And then after you watch the video, you're going to then go to your Anki decks. Okay, this is the Anki deck that I have. I've suspended everything. I've new decked everything from what my deck usually is. I've unlocked everything, and I'm like 60 or 70% done with all the decks. But what you're going to do is then go into it, and I'll move this down. What you're going to go into it, and you're going to then hit browse. Okay. Now, majority of the time, your stuff is already going to be unlocked. So what you need to do is hit Command A if you're on a Mac, or Command All. I want to say even on a Windows, Command A works. I have a Mac. But then you're then going to suspend all the cards. Okay, on a Mac, it's Command J. And I want to say it's the same thing on a Windows. And if someone in the chat can confirm who has a window, that'd be great. Just so I know for sure that I'm giving the right directions for someone who has a Windows. But that's what you're going to do. After you have everything suspended, you should look like this. Nothing is due. Nothing. You don't have to do anything, right? So from that point in time, you're then going to do browse again, and you're going to go into the tabs. Okay, so what it'll look like is something like this at the very beginning. Make sure everything's closed, so everything's nice and neat and tidy, so you can see everything off to the left. You're going to see this tag bar. You're going to down click the tag bar, and it'll pull up something like this. Okay, now depending on what deck you get, if you get a deck that is from the Anki site, which is what this deck is, or the Anki hub, then it's going to look more like this. If you get the deck that's more from the previous semesters or previous years, it should look more like this one with this step 1, and then you'll see these bars coming down. That's fine. Whichever deck you have works out. This one has step 1, step 2, step 3 all incorporated into it, which is great, but you guys are only worried about step 1 right now. So there's no reason for you to focus on step 2 and step 3. That focuses more on treatment. But anyways, so you're going to go into the deck tags, and then you're going to go to Boards and Beyond, because that's what our videos are. That's where we're referring you to, right? As those videos. And then you're going to go to Immunology. You're going to down click Immunology. And then you're in the basics area, right? This is basics, basic immunology. So you're going to go into the basic, and you're going to see lymph nodes and spleen. You're going to click on that. Now, these are all the cards pertaining to lymph nodes and spleen with that video. Okay? So you watch the video first. Then you go to lymph nodes and spleen, and you unlock these cards, and you do these cards. So now, how do you do the cards now is the next question. There's 2 ways you can do the cards. You can unlock them, and just do them on your main tab. Okay, there's be 52 of them, and then you just go through them. Blank lymph node organs allow immune cells to react with antigens. If you guys haven't gone over this yet, right? But these are secondary lymphoid organs, which we'll go over. But these are the questions. And then you're going to see on the bottom, you'll see again, hard, good, and easy. Do not worry about the hard. Do not. Okay? Because then you have to depict in your brain, is this a question that was hard for me to understand, but I still got it? Excuse me. Or is this a question that I just didn't know at all? Right? Don't waste your time trying to contemplate on that. It's either you didn't know it and it's an again, or you knew it and it's a good. Now, if you knew it so quickly that you were reading it and you immediately answered it, then it's an easy. Okay, like you're reading it, like the blank lymphoid organs allow immune cells to react with antigens. Secondary. Okay, that's an easy card. So now what will end up happening on an easy card, if you click easy, you won't see this card for 5 days. 5 days, you won't see this card. And on the 5th day, this card will pop up again. Okay? Now, this is ultimately like you doing questions, which is why some people, they feel like, oh man, I'm wasting time doing these. And they're like, I'd rather do questions. And in my mind, I'm like, these guys are almost like questions. You don't know what the answer is. If anything, these guys are harder than questions because this is blank. They ain't giving you answer choices. A lot of times you see the thing and you're like, I'm not gonna worry about the name of it because I'm gonna see that name anyways in the answer choices. So why am I gonna worry about what the name is? All I just need to be able to do is recognize it, which is fair and true. You only need to recognize it. But if you really want to be able to excel on these tests, you need to be able to predict it before you see it. Because if you can predict it before you see it, then you won't get mixed up if one or two answer choices kind of make you seem familiar with what the answer could be. Right? You don't want them to throw you off. They're really good at making answer choices that one or two or even three look the same. Okay? If you're able to predict what the answer is, you will never fall into that pit. I guarantee it. Now, with that being said, you go through, right? You go through these cards. You say good for this one. We'll say this one's hard. This one's good. This one's hard, so on and so forth, right? You go through all the cards. Now, then what will end up happening is you can look at your stats for the day. Now, this is my stats for when I started. Now, as you go down, you'll see, and this is really hard because I've been doing this, but not looking for that. Not looking for the card interval. I'm looking for future cards. Yeah. Okay. So here in the future date area, this will tell you generally what cards are due when. So let me go ahead and, because I didn't hit new or easy on any of those cards. Let me show you. Easy, 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 easy. Okay, so all those cards I did easy. Now, when you look at your stats, you see how now these cards are due in advance, like 3 days, 4 days, you're going to see these cards. 5 days, you'll see these cards. And the way that they do it in the system, if you keep seeing that all the cards are easy, they're not all going to pop up on the 5th day. No, they're going to pop up. Some will pop up 3 days. Some will pop up 4 days. Some will pop up 5 days. Some will pop up 6 days. So they still have some leeway where you're not going to see all the cards in a bulk, even if all of them are easy to you. Okay? Now, with that being said, when you then go over it at that date, let's say 5 days later, okay, I'll show you that here in a minute. But 5 days later, you're going over the same cards, right? And you're like, oh man, I didn't remember this. You can then hit again, okay? And now it's an again area. It's going to come earlier. It's going to come 3 hours, okay? And then you'll be able to check it again at that point. Now, you have to be persistent with this. Every day, you have to do this. Okay? And the reason why I say this is this. If you do not be persistent with this, these cards will build up, and they will build up quick. Okay? One day, you decide not to do it. The next day, now you got 10 plus the 7, plus the new cards you're going to do that day. Okay? So it builds up very quickly. So my advice to you is this. Start off small. Start off small. So for instance, there's 50 cards in this deck. 50 cards. You could do 25 if you have an issue like doing Anki. Just do 25. So then 25, half of this deck will be today, half of the deck will be tomorrow. So 25 today, and then when you come tomorrow, 25 will be old, so you would have already seen them. 25 will be the new. Okay? And when you're doing these cards, here's the next thing. You're going to see all these extra tabs. Do not go into these extra tabs. Do not. I understand that these guys have very good info in it. But here's the thing. These tabs are there for people who do not do the material before. If you do not do the material before, then I say yes, you need to do the tabs because this gives you the background knowledge. But if you've done the background knowledge by doing the videos already, doing the tabs isn't going to do you much good. You're just going to do the tabs and you'll get more info. Yeah, great. But you're not going to get an Anki card that's going to be all these extra things. Okay? You're not going to. Now, here comes the next question then. But all the other things I'm seeing on this tab is important for me to know also. I also need to know what's the drainage of the oral cavity. I also need to know what's the drainage of the lungs. I also need to know what's the drainage of the urinary bladder, how the top is different than the bottom. The top is going to the external iliac and the bottom is going to the internal iliac. I need to know that stuff. So where does this come into play? Now, this is when you start now branching off from just doing boards and beyond. Now, you can do this in 2 ways. After you've done boards and beyond, you've got a good basis on it, you can then branch off and do the other things. Like if you're like, okay, well, I got first aid. Well, you can do first aid and then decide I want to do the immuno that pertains to first aid. And then that has all the immuno that pertains to first aid. You got the immune system organs, the lymph node, if you want to do that. You see how some of these cards weren't unlocked, which is fine because they weren't included in that Boards and Beyond video. So why are they going to be unlocked when you try to do just Boards and Beyond, right? But if you want to do the other things, then look at your first aid and then go through that. Now, why not just do first aid? Because first aid had Boards and Beyond and these extra things. Because if you just do first aid is not teaching you. It's a comprehensive short form, right? It's a shortcut just teaching you what things you should have known going through your first 2 years of medical school. So if you go there and try to learn it from there, you're going to miss so much. You will miss so much that's not included in the book, but is responsible to know. Okay? So that's why you don't go to first aid first. You go to other resources like Boards and Beyond, which you guys got now, or your lecture notes, which you will also have from the professors. They also have very good breakdown of all the lecture material that you need to know. They may not deliver it the best, but they have it there for you. And you can go through it and do Anki to then help with the active recall. Okay? Does anyone have any questions so far about any of this stuff? They will change the license. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, try not to keep it short, right? Keep it short within our group. How did you get the Picturize and Bootcamp tabs add-ons? I have the Picturize deck and Bootcamp subscription. So, with that being said, the Picturize deck and the Bootcamp subscription, I want to say to get those add-ons onto Anki, you have to go to their respective sites and get the pictures from them to be able to add it onto Anki. Like you have to download that portion, like download those photos, and then empty those folders into Anki. And then when you do that, you should have those accessible to you. Because that's something that I had to do, right? Whenever I did Anki Hub, I had to download the folders onto here. Now, yeah, they're not gonna let me go back to it because I've canceled my subscription to Anki Hub now. But you would, man, yeah, I'd have to go back to try to figure that piece out again, like how to download it. But they do explain it on here. I'll throw the link in the chat. It's a link in Anki Hub where they explain how to download folders with pictures onto your Anki. Okay, but that's how you would do it with that. Because I had an issue with that with having sketchy subscriptions. And I was like, but the sketchy pictures aren't showing up. And they said I had to go and actually get it from Sketchy and download it to it. And it's because of the whole, right? It's the whole they don't want fraudulent activity being tied to their business and stuff like that, which is fair. All right. Any other questions before we keep going? All right, great. So now from there, and with that being said, I do encourage you to buy subscriptions from these other things if you're doing them, right? For instance, if you're doing Sketchy, it is nice to do the Sketchy videos with the Sketchy. Okay. But if you don't have the money for them, just doing the Sketchy cards is fine. Because what you can do is you can use your actual notes and follow with the sketchy aspects. So, for instance, if you were doing cranial nerves, you could do all of sketchy cranial nerves while you're doing your cranial nerve PowerPoints from the lecture professors. So, you unlock all the cranial nerves and you go to edit. So this is developing. So this is that other way that we're saying that you could do decks, right? So you do create a filter deck under edit. Now, this is only going to pull cards from that area that you just suspended. Okay? Because if you see up behind in the shaded area, it's 368 cards. That's now in the main deck area. because the main deck area has all the cards that you unsuspend. Okay. So what you're going to do now is you're going to get a sub portion of that main deck. So when you make this filtered deck, that 368 cards is going to go away because it's going to now be incorporated into this sub deck. Okay. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it cranial nerves. You can then put sketchy so you know it came from sketchy. And let's say doing 368 cards seems kind of much for one day. New cards at least. So let's say we'll do 50 new cards. And then you hit build. Now, this 50 new cards, it was 300 and something, right? Now it's 50 because it took from that 300 and whatever, right? 368. So that's why it's now 50 cards. Now, these are the 50 cards you're going to study. And then the next day, these 50 cards would have been taken from the 318. So then this would have then been 368. Okay? And then you go through these. And it's the same setup. Which cranial nerve is responsible for the afferent limb of the lacrimal reflex? Lacrimation reflex. Does anyone know what's the afferent limb of that? Good. Trigeminal, yes, perfect. It's coming in on 5, right? And then leaves. Perfect. Good. Yeah, so that's how this is broken down. So essentially, you guys would have then said, if you did it right away, that's an easy. If you did it after thinking about it for a little bit, then that's a good. Okay. Another thing that you can do if you want to is you can sit down and you can edit these cards because sometimes they're not specific enough. Okay. So for instance, there's a card in here that's for the urinary bladder. And all it says is that the urinary bladder has lymphatic drainage of the internal iliacs. That is true, but not 100% true. Because the superior bladder is different than the inferior bladder. So what you can do is you can edit the cards to make them more correct, right? Versus just leaving it as it is. So you don't miss those questions that they try to trick you up on in lecture material. So for instance, here they already added the V1, but let's say they didn't and they just put V. Well, you could have got a question that was cranial V2, V3, and you would have been like, I just knew it was cranial 5. That's what my Anki card helped me remember. And now you're screwed. Okay? So that's why it's also good to kind of have your notes open while you're doing this so you can make these Anki cards more specific if you find out in your cards or in your notes that this isn't incorporating all that my lectures are talking about. Okay? But that doesn't happen too often. That does not happen too often. Okay? But when it does happen, you remember those cards so much better because you added in that little tidbit. You added in that extra bit of information that you did. Right? Because if you personally did the cards, you're going to remember it a lot easier. But who has time to make like 30,000 cards? Nobody has that type of time. Nobody. Okay. Let alone have the willpower to sit down and do that and risk the chances of getting DVTs in the legs because you're sitting there 24 hours for months at a time. And then all of a sudden find out you get a DVT in your leg. And now they got to chop your leg off because you got gangrene or something. And hey, at least I made all my cards for Anki. No. Okay. Don't do that. Just use this as a great resource for you. Okay. And of course, I'm being extreme. Like, that's not what's really the possibility. But I'm just trying to hit the point home that it's just not feasible for you to do that. Okay. All right, great. So that's how you can use Anki. Okay. We've talked about the decks. I've talked about how you can do the browsing. I've talked about so the add button. You can add cards, of course, if you find out that there's something that you did that was not discussed, or this is another great thing, if you miss a question on a concept that you just didn't think. For instance, there was a question that I ran across that was pertaining to a bacteria, right? And there was like, you can get Pseudomonas, da da da. And you always think of Pseudomonas, and you'll learn this as you go, as a bug that you get from water, right? You go in swimming pools, you can get Pseudomonas. You go there, you can get Pseudomonas. Another thing was raw vegetables. And I was like, raw vegetables? Like, dang, like I didn't even think of raw vegetables. But that's another way because they're uncooked, they get washed, so you can get it from raw vegetables. So I made an Anki card about that because that's such a small detail that you wouldn't really think about unless you missed that question, you know? But when you make those cards, make it very specific. Okay. So be like Pseudomonas aeruginosa, blah blah blah, raw vegetables, and blah blah blah. Right. And then you would make those raw vegetables be that card. Here, let me give you Pseudomonas um infections can occur from a variety of ways, including swimming pools and raw vegetables. Okay. Now, that's my card that I want to make. What are the details I want to make sure I remember? Because the things that you want to remember are the things you want to do active recall on. Okay. Don't do active recall on something like occur. That's not going to help you in your test, right? Variety of ways is not going to help you on your test. Swimming pools, that could help you on your test because maybe in the vignette, they went to a swimming pool. So you need to think, oh, what type of infections can I get if I go to a swimming pool? I think I remember Pseudomonas being one of them. And there's a variety of others, right? Or eating raw vegetables. Now, they're not going to say raw vegetables, but they could say salads, eating salads. But having the idea of raw vegetables in your mind kind of helps you if you think you got to critically think of these questions. So these cards are great if you critically think on your questions, which we're going to practice on in our sessions throughout the week. Okay. So this is good, but you now have to tack this on to critical thinking. If you just do cards and you don't have critical thinking, you're going to get 50% right. Okay. So you need to have both tools. Now, with that being said, this is great. And then you then go to these tools. These are the close tools, which then allows you to be able to identify what areas are going to be the active recall notion. Okay. And then you hit close, and then you say close, and no, you hit add. And now it's added. And then you hit close. And now we go back to our deck. You see how it's added in here now and is one. And then you hit study now. And it says Pseudomonas infections can occur from a variety of ways, including swimming pools and raw vegetables. Ah, yeah. So that's how you can use it with the add button. Outside of that, I wouldn't use the add button. Okay. So that's Anki in a nutshell. You can get Anki app on your tablet or your phones, which is great tool to use if you love to walk around, if you love to use it when you're on a plane, if you love to use it and you're in the car and you're just driving for long periods of time and you're not driving, right? You don't want to do Anki and you're the one driving. But these are the scenarios that you could use something that it would be great and not have your actual laptop open. Okay. So for that, you would just go to your store, your Apple store, your app store, you download it, and then you see this button here that says sync. You'll click it. Okay. And when you click the sync button, it syncs whatever happened on this device. Okay. It'll sync it to the Anki like website that you have to make a subscription for and all that stuff. It's free. It's just like a username and password and all that stuff, but it'll sync all of that. Okay, to your main device. And then you'll be able to download that to your tablet if you use a tablet. Now, my tablet has my updated version. My laptop, which you see here, has my unupdated version because I canceled everything out. I made everything new so you guys could see it. Now we have an issue. I don't want this one on my computer because I would have lost everything. Right? On your tablet, let me show you on my tablet. Okay, so now you can see my tablet. On my tablet, I have Anki. And yes, I am someone who's a big loser and likes to keep his test on the back of his background. This was, I think, the lowest test grade. And that's why I put it on my background, because I was like, But and that was comp, actually. But so you go, and it was also the test that ended up making me lose my honors, which is another thing, but it's whatever. It just helps motivate me. So you go through, this is what my actual deck is. Okay. So I don't want to add that deck I just showed you on my laptop to this. So what I do is I sync and I do a full sync. This is now going to force this to my actual laptop. It's not going to force my laptop onto my pad, because it could be that maybe you did your pad and you didn't do your laptop, or you did your laptop but not your pad. Then you do, okay? So now it's forced one way or the other. When you synchronize, it's going to ask you, do you download this to Anki Web or do you download from Anki Web? So the difference is this. Downloading to Anki Web is when you're downloading the actual device that you have in your hands to the web. So the device is the most recent formatted version. If you download from Anki Web, then the device you're holding is the less recent version of Anki Web. Okay, so I want to upload to Anki Web. Now I'm uploading this version to Anki Web, which is my current Anki version. Okay, this is going, and then I'll show you how this looks on the other way. Okay, so now this has been overriding what I just synchronized. Okay, so now let me go back to this. Okay, so now this is the old version, right? This is the old version that you guys, that we walked through and we talked about. We're going to sync. It's going to ask the same question, because there's a discrepancy, right? I just downloaded from my pad to Anki Web. So my laptop is now asking me, is the laptop right or is the pad right? You need to make the distinction. I want you now to download from Anki Web because my pad is right, not my laptop. So here it's downloading. And now this is from my actual pad to my laptop. As you can see, there's a crap ton of cards. I personally don't get anxious with seeing large number of cards. I don't. So I tend to just do them. I'll go through them and I knock them out. I don't go through all of them. There's no way I'm going to get through 6,870 cards today. There's no way. But I will get through a portion of that. And I know that tomorrow I won't see that many new cards because I have set up personally for me. So you can see where I've even messed up and I've missed some days, especially after I took my comp. I was like, I'm not doing Anki for a few days. And that's why I have all these days that have cards that are due. Okay, so these are all cards that are due. 55, like 2 months ago. 51, right? These are all the cards that are due. So 55 or 56 days ago, I have 1,226 cards due on that day. Yeah, I'll get to them. I'm not worried too much about it because I know I'll get to them. But this is what ends up happening if you are not persistent. Throughout the semester, you should be very persistent with it. But when the day ends or a test ends, it's okay if you take a day off. And then you'll just come back to it the next day. My comp was, about 2 months ago. That's when my comp was. Yeah, about 2 months ago. Or about 2 months or a month and a half almost. In that area was when I had my comp. It's just all this extra crap they have you do with the EED that you're just sitting on your hands waiting to take step. Literally, I'm just sitting here waiting to take step right now. But I'll get there whenever they give me the key. I think I'm now at the point that all they have to do is send me the key. So when you get there, and this is, leaps and bounds ahead of you. And I'm not saying that because you won't get there. I'm saying there just because you have this semester, next semester, and basic to get through before you even get there. But you go through basic. After basic, you got to wait for them to confirm that you passed basic, even if you see the grade as being a pass. That takes about a week. So Dr. Fernandez or whatnot has to send you an email saying, oh, congratulations, you passed comp, even though you already got your grade back, saying that you passed comp. And you have to wait on this. Now, some people I've heard, they really pushed hard and they were able to expedite the process and whatnot, which, I mean, you could do that if you wanted to. Me personally, I was like, yeah, I mean, I can expedite it. But I was like, there's no reason for me to try to, because I looked at my match and I looked at if I expedited it, would it make a difference? Would it make a difference in going to residency? Would it make a difference in me doing anything else? No, it doesn't. It doesn't make a difference. You still end up having to submit your hospital stuff like months in advance. That it doesn't make a difference. You still won't get the next slot. You'll have to get like 2 slots down for residency or rotations. I mean, for rotations. And then on top of that, for match, right, you have to kind of span that out with your core rotations. And if you go to FIU or if you go to Ohio and how that whole thing works out, I'm actually kind of happy that I didn't expedite it because I wasn't sure about going to FIU, which I'm required to do FIU because I did global health. But I've been hearing some rumors about FIU that makes me think, okay, maybe I'll do Ohio instead. But that's just me personally. And the reason why is just the things I've heard, and things are going to be completely different when you get there, right? So do not base your decisions on what I hear. Okay? Because it's going to be totally different by the time you get there. It's just what I'm right there. So I need to know because this is the next step, right? So whatever they're dealing with now, I'm going to deal with right around the corner. So they're not going to have any changes to it. But you guys, you got a whole year before. So plenty of things can change in a rotation setup by the time you get there. Okay. And you guys will be notified of those changes by the time you get there. Okay. So, so that's why I'm saying, like, for me personally, it worked out really nice. Because if I would have expedited it, I would have been in FIU early, and then I would have been in this crapshoot that I hear about. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's how that is. With that going on. And it's and it's all hearsay and it may not even be 100% true, but I'm just going to do the best option for me and my family. Um, so yeah. Now, that's how this is set up. Does anyone have any questions on that? Any questions at all about any of this stuff? Anki, about the Boards and Beyond, about the cards, how to make filtered decks. If you end up running into future questions, I can I'll show you a YouTuber who's also really good at making Anki cards. Yeah, my daughter, she loves Bluey. I'll be honest, I love Bluey too. Bluey's an amazing TV show. I'm a kid at heart. Um, okay, so there's this person named Anking. My wife thinks I'm going to be a pediatrician. You go to Anking here. This person has a whole bunch of videos. Okay, and these videos you can look into, the best settings for Anking, and he walks you through on how to do that. How to download and use Anking, how to study for step one. Um, how to use custom or filtered decks, which is what I kind of went over with you. So you can go over that. Let me go ahead and leave his thing. I don't know how to leave his here in the chat because he's also a great person to use whenever you need to figure out something with Anking. I spent like my whole break figuring out Anking. Okay. So this is a good question. How much time do we spend? That kind of depends on how you feel about the material. So what I mean is this. If you feel like you reviewed the material, you've looked over the material, you've done the notes, and the only thing now is you have to do recall to memorize and like do that, then Anki would be the higher of the two. So for instance, let me break down how I did Anki first year. First year, I'd go to lecture. Okay. Go to lecture, do my notes. Sometimes, majority of the times, the professor talks so fast, you have to sometimes rewatch or make your notes look nicer because they talk so fast or they said something and you didn't understand it, but you wrote it down, right? So you have that down. Or you do your videos and you write them down, whichever way you do it, right? This is the first thing you do. And this is where the pass tracker comes in. Play. You do your learning objectives, slides, or whatever, right? That's your first pass. Okay. You maybe go to lecture if you go to lecture. If you don't go to lecture, don't go to lecture. Okay. You maybe do questions on it. You can do questions on it. I kind of hold off on questions until that's the last thing I do personally. Um, but that's because I use questions more of a clue to see if I know the material or not. Not so much a clue to see how they're going to ask the questions, but a clue to, do I know what the heck I'm supposed to know? But you can do it however you want to, right? What works best for you. This is now personalizing what you can do. Now you do the slides, you do the lecture notes, is what I used to do. I would then do lecture as well as SGA, right? Now, at that point in time, I have reviewed the material. I know the material. If I sat down and look at the material, I could be like, yeah, I know what this is talking about. But if you took the notes away from me, I wouldn't know what the heck I was like. I don't know. I don't remember the name of this. I don't know what happens when you decrease blood pressure. If I looked at it on a piece of paper, I'd be, oh yeah, I remember that image. I remember that diagram. But do I really know it? No. Okay. It's almost being able to see someone and be like, oh yeah, you're my friend. But if someone was to ask you who your friends are, you couldn't tell them. You'd be like, that one woman who has the hair that kind of comes down and whatnot. And then they ask you questions like, well, do you know what their favorite food is? I if I saw them and I saw them eating it, I could remember that that was their favorite food, but I can't tell you off the top of my head. Oh, well, do you know what's their favorite color? I mean, if I saw them again, I could probably tell you. This is where Anki comes into play, where you then hammer in those details. So I would spend a majority after that with just Anki. I wouldn't even look at my notes anymore. After I looked through my notes and collaborated with Anki, my notes were irrelevant at that point. Anki was the thing I did. So sometimes I would do Anki for 4 hours a day because whatever time I would have done notes, I did Anki because it's essentially the same thing, but now I'm doing active recall versus passively reading my notes again. Like, does that make sense? So it kind of changes with how you it changes with where you are with the material. Okay. I would never go to Anki first because Anki would be the worst thing to do first because it's just telling you facts with no connection to anything. So you don't go to Anki first. You do that after you've integrated your notes into it. So I'm happy to answer that question. That was a very great question. How do I enable in sync between Pass Tracker on two different computers? Oh, so how do you enable sync on the Pass Tracker? So you can't really sync a Pass Tracker, and I'm sorry to say, like, because this is a PowerPoint, because this is like an Excel file, right? Um, so what you're going to have to do is one or two ways. You can either download this to your Google Drive and edit it on your Google Drive. So then when you go to your other computer and you open it on the Google Drive, it will have already been edited from your other computer. Okay? Other than that, there's no other way that I can think of that you can sync the Excel sheet. Because this is an Excel sheet, it's not a program on the internet, right? So it's a little harder to sync it. But that's the best option I can think of is that you do it that way. You download it to your drive and then you just use your drive as your way of doing it. But that's a great question if you're going between computers. Okay, so that's how that's set up. And then we talked about that. We talked about that. Let me show you the. Someone asked about the Google Drive. I'll talk about that. Okay, so we go to my. No, I'm not in the right one. This is my business one now. Okay, so this is your guys's Med 3 Fall of 2023, right? Your prep sessions that we're doing, right? This is all the prep material that you guys will end up getting by the end of this break, right? So we're doing day one. So you all should have access to this day one. If you don't have access to this day one, please notify me so I can add you to it. But everybody should be added to this day one, week one, day one, which we're going to do tomorrow, right? I'm going to do a recording on it. And then at that time, after that day, I will then release day two, which I have the form. I just have to download it onto this. And you will have access to the MCQ session that we're going to have. Okay. Now, that's the way I have it set up because I don't want to bombard you with all the material, right? Because once again, guys, this is the break. I know some of you may be go-getters. This is the break. Make sure you recharge. Okay? There's no reason going ham right now because you will burn out when it matters. Okay? So essentially, this is put in place not to hinder you, right? But to protect you from going too ham. That's why I have it set up where, okay, day one, this is the material that you have access to. When you finish this material and we have the lecture, then you'll get access to day two. So then you can do that material because I don't want you jumping to day two when we haven't done day one lecture. Okay. And that's essentially why I have it set up that way. But at the end of this whole 7 weeks, you have all of these folders available to you with the recordings, with everything. But outside of that, you have access to everything else inside this folder already. I've already given you your semester break schedule. I've already given you your session letter, your folder access thing that you'll be able to then click on. So for instance, you guys have access to this one already because this is week one, day one. You do not have access to the other ones yet because we haven't gotten there yet. But you have the paper, so when we do get there, you have access to it automatically. You can just click on it and you'll be able to pull it up. Okay? Good. Any questions on any of that so far?
Like I don't have access to the prep folder. I did send your access.
Oh, so you don't have access to the prep folder. So you don't have access to the first one, like this one here, day one?
That's correct.
Okay, I will go ahead and take care of that. And because yeah, I apologize on that end of it then. And then if that happens again, please just send me a message on WhatsApp or send me a message on via email. I should get it in a WhatsApp though. But yeah, I'll fix that issue for you right after we finish this call. Oh, here, let me stop sharing and I can do it right now. Any other questions? I know you sign up for the first day. And oh, the other thing I wanted to ask you guys, since we have time, this is the end now, with times constraints pertaining to these sessions. There's wiggle room to them. So did you guys want to keep them at 12? Tomorrow will be at 12 because that's our first date, and that's kind of like already set in stone because I want to have that first date set in stone now because that's what I've been telling people, right? It's going to be 12 tomorrow. But going forward from tomorrow, do you want to change to a different time, a different date than having it on um Saturday, or do you want to have it? I think having it on Saturday and Sunday is issue because if you have it on Saturday and Sunday, you're having it back to back. Like one day you're doing the old stuff, and then the next day you're doing the new stuff, right? So you don't really have a day to go over or time to go over the new material. So I'm going to more likely change the dates, but is 12 okay?
Have 3 saying 12 is okay in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. 12, 12, 12, 12. Okay. Then we'll stick with 12. And then we'll do it from that time spot. Okay. I'm going to end up changing the dates though, just because of how it's set up. What I may end up doing is we could do, let's see here. We could do a Monday and then do a Monday Saturday setup. Monday, Saturday. So then on Mondays, you go over the material. Saturday, you'll have Sunday and then to Monday. So you have a day to look over the new material. That doesn't work out that well either. So I guess the big question is this. Do you want more than, so will 2 days work? 2 day, like 2 day span between classes? So 2 days? Okay, so we can do 2 day span between classes. So then what we could do is this. One class will have on, okay, so if we do 2 days, that means we need to do it set up in a way that we could do Monday, maybe Sunday. Okay, so if we do 2 days, I'm going to have to push one of the days more than likely to an evening because I'm going to have to do it during the week. And during the week, I have my, I'm going to the clinics. Monday and Thursday is fine, but we'd have to do it more in the evening if we do it more Monday, Thursday. I'm okay doing Monday early tomorrow, but we're going to have to do it in the evening after this coming Monday. Because I'll be at the clinics till about 4. So it's okay to do it a little bit later. All right, great. So we could do, you want to do 5? Okay. So we'll do 5 to 7, Monday, Thursday. And then if something ends up popping up with you guys needing to have, like, if you guys end up having issues, then we can change that. Yeah, most definitely. Like tomorrow is set in stone. We're gonna do tomorrow Monday. Like that's fine. And I will most definitely keep you guys in the loop on what day and what time. So I don't see an issue moving forward with having it 5 to 7 on those days, on having it Monday, Thursday. I don't have any issues with that. Monday, Thursday, 5 to 7, and we can set that up. And then, of course, if something ends up popping up, like with my daughter or my wife or something like that, then I'll give you guys heads up way in advance, because I don't want to throw something at you on that day. Okay. Sounds good. Yes. Monday, Thursday, 5 to 7. I'll send that also. You guys will get updates on the schedule, and you guys can go and actually start scheduling in advance. So you have that already set in your calendar, right? So you don't have to worry about memorizing it. Like, it'll be in your calendar when you go to, so let me share my screen. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to the site, right? Since you guys have just scheduled for tomorrow, you'll go to the Heather site, or you go to your email, right? Here, let me do my version so you can see. You'll go to Squarespace, open it up, and you'll go account dashboard. Flip classroom method, or you'll lecture on something. So since you guys have not been taught this material other than doing videos, I'm going to be lecturing, but I'll be asking questions, right? I'll be prying you to answer questions as we go. So if you did watch the videos, you will have, like, you'll be able to answer those questions. But if you don't, it's fine. I'm going to give you guys the answers anyway as we go through. And the only reason why is because it encourages interaction without forcing you to do a lot of prep beforehand. Because I don't expect it to be like, I know some programs are like, you gotta prepare a PowerPoint of this material before you come in, which is, cool and all, because you have to understand material to be able to make the PowerPoint. So you're going to do a lot of research on it and spend a lot of time on it and whatnot, which is all right, because then you'll know it at the end. But it's asking you to do a lot on your break. Like, this is your break, right? So asking you guys to watch a video, take notes on the video, do Anki if you do Anki on it, and then review the material on that, that's not that bad. But asking you to make a whole PowerPoint on it, like, okay, like, we're going too far now. Especially since the videos I'm asking you to do is only like maybe 17-minute long, or maybe even 20-minute long videos. So you'll only be sitting there watching a video for maybe 2-3 hours top. And that's within a time span of 2 days, 2 to 3 days. So you can split it up and make it work. But if you want to do it as a flipped classroom, I'm okay with it. I'm flexible, because this is essentially for you guys, right? So what you'll do is sign up for these other days. I'm going to move the dates to the Thursdays. Tomorrow is set in stone. You guys are already taking care of that. Oh, this is why I haven't sent it to you. So Shirley, if you could sign up for this first date. And I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I hope I didn't. But so sign up for this first date, so then I can have you in there. And that's that's the reason why I haven't, because I go off this list on sending the resources. So that means you've missed out on all the other resources, which I'll send to you after you do this. Okay. But so that's that. And then while you're doing that, also sign up for the other days. Oh, I don't know why it's not showing up then. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it via WhatsApp. Okay. And we'll figure this all out. Um, And then the other days, so sign up for all the other days, which will then be switched to Monday, Thursday. Okay. And you'll get all those updates on your via your email. Okay. And it's all the way through. Great. All right. Let's stop sharing and I will end this call now because we're all done. Took about an hour and 12 minutes, not long. Not too bad. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, okay, at 12 to discuss the beginning portions of Immuno, the basics. Okay? All right, guys. I'll upload this in the chat. Okay, I'll upload this into the chat because even those people who aren't accepted into the program, if they want to use Anki, I'd rather they know how to use Anki. It's fine. I don't mind it. Or maybe I shouldn't. And I should just leave it for you guys. I mean, I didn't say the password for the Boards and Beyond video. Let me